I can learn to understand you much better if I can get familiar with the way you talk. I need your permission to help.
Ibare Ramarasam Rasane Pibare pibare ramarasam pibare ramarasam rasani pibare ramarasam pibare ramarasam janana marana bhaya shoka viduram janana marana bhaya shoka viduram sakala shastra nigamagama saram sakala shastra nigamagama saram pibare ramarasam rasani pibare ramarasam pibare ramarasam Shuddha Paramahamsa Ashrama Geetam Ashrama Geetam Shuka Shaunaka Kaushika Mukha Pitam Shuka Shaunaka Kaushika Mukha Pitam Pibare Ramarasam Rasani Pibare Ramarasam pibare Ramarasam
ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्मीलितमयेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सर्वस्मृतिशिरोरत्न विराजितपदाम्बुज वेदान्ताम्बुजसूर्याय तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चिन्मयं व्यापितं सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। चैतन्यं शाश्वतं शान्तं व्योमातीतं निरञ्जनं बिन्दुनाथतलातीतं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अनेकजन्मसम्प्राप्तकर्मेन्द्रविदाहिनी आत्मज्ञानाग्निदानेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मन्नाथश्री जगन्नाथो मद्गुरुश्री जगद्गुरु मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमुक्तिं वृन्दादीनं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावानीकं त्रिवरविधि सद्गुरुं नमः। सदस्यखिलभेदाधीनमेघस्वरूपं प्रकृतिविगतशून्यं नित्यमानन्दमूर्ति विमलगणमं सुन्दरामकृष्णं भजामः। निर्गममतिसूक्ष्मं निष्प्रपञ्चं निरीहं विघ्नसदृशमीशं सर्वभूताधिवासं त्रिगुणरहितसच्चिद्ब्रह्मरूपं वरेण्यं विमलगणमं सुन्दरामकृष्णं भजामः। विदैर्यम् अवधीर्णं ज्ञानभक्तिप्रशान्तिः तनयगन्धचित्तं जीवदुःखासहिष्णुं सदसहजसमाधिं चिन्मयेन त्वमलाङ्गं विमलपरमहंसं रामकृष्णं भजामः। ശോഭനാം ശുക്ലാംബരധരാം ധീരാം ലജ്ജാപരവിഭൂഷിതാം പ്രസന്നാം ധർമ്മകാമാർത്ഥമോക്ഷദാം വിശ്വമംഗള സുനാഥവാമഭാവസ്ഥാം ഭക്താനുഗ്രഹകാരിണി ഓം വിധാജ്ഞേതാഭിയാശക്തി രാമകൃഷ്ണേ സ്ഥിതാ കിയാ സർവവിദ്യാസ്വരൂപാം താം ശാരദാം പ്രണമാമ്യഹം. पादः ध्याननिमग्नरूपं च पद्माक्षगौरविग्रहं ज्योतिषमासिद्ध लोककल्याणकारिणम् ॐ नमः श्रीधिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरिये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने प्रभावारिणे ഉജ്ജ്വലമധ്യം തേജസാപൂരയന്തി ധ്യായി വിദ്യാനുദയാഖ്യം ജഗതിഗുണാം ശ്രീരാം ബുദ്ധിരാമി. ഓം സാമ്രാജ്യസഖ്യം ജഗദ്വിഹായ ധാരയും ജീവരത്നവേശം നീലവേദം പ്രസുധാതനന്ദു ദയാമയം തം ജനതോസ്മി ബുദ്ധം. നമോ നമോ ബുദ്ധദിവാകരായ നമോ നമോ ഗൗതമചന്ദ്രികായ നമോ നമോ അനന്തഗുണധരായ നമോ നമോ ശാക്യമന്ധരായ. सरलवाती ईशितत्वं प्रकाश्य विश्वजगतविशेषो अपि ईशपुत्रो भूयोः तमतिशयपवित्रं नीरिजं योगगन्धं परमप्रेममूर्तिं ईशनाथं भजामः. जागृत्सुप्तसुषुप्त्यवस्थासु मनसा वाजाकर्मणास्थाभ्यां गत्यां यस्फुरं यदुक्तं तत्फुरं तत्सर्वं ब्रह्मात्मनं भवति स्वाहा. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. वेदान्तदीगन्तः सर्वयज्ञेश्वरो भवति तस्मिन् स्पृष्टे जगत्पृष्ठं वेदे वेदं जगत्.
can learn to understand.
To This is a reading from one of the first articles to ever appear about Sri Ramakrishna available to the outside world other than India. And it's an article called A Real Mahatman, written by Professor Max Muller. This is just a section of that. He had written, actually, this article, fully before, but then he added a postscript. This is the postscript. He was born, that is Sri Ramakrishna. He was born in 1835, actually 1836. And then he gives some details of his birth. The information came to Professor Max Muller from Pratap Chandra Mazumdar, who was one of the close disciples of Keshav Chandra Sen. Keshav Chandra Sen was quite a phenomenon in India at that time, and his fame had spread to Europe. Also, he had gone to England. He had met the Queen. He was treated as a very honored guest. So it was by seeing a change in Keshav Chandra Sen that Professor Max Muller became interested. What was the cause for this change? And the cause was, of course, the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. So this is what's being referred to here. It was not easy to obtain any trustworthy information about the circumstances of the Mahatma's life, a life singularly uneventful in his relations with the outer world, though full of stirring events in the inner world of his mind. Pratap Chandra Mazumdar, the leader of the Brahmo Samaj and well known to many people in England, tells me of the extraordinary influence which this Mahatma exercised on Keshav Chandra Sen, on himself, and on a large number of highly educated men in Calcutta. A score of young men who were more closely attached to him have become ascetics, that is, monks after his death. They follow his teaching by giving up the enjoyment of wealth and carnal pleasure, living together in a neighboring mutt or college, and retiring at times to holy and solitary places all over India, even as far as the Himalayan mountains. Besides these holy men, we are told that a great number of men with their families are ardently devoted to his cause. But what is most interesting is the fact that it was this Mahatma who exercised the greatest influence on Keshav Chandra Sen during the last phase of his career. It was a surprise to many of Keshav Chandra's friends and admirers to observe the sudden change of the sober reformer into the mystic and ecstatic saint that took place towards the end of his life. Ramakrishna never moved in the world or was a man of the world, or even in the sense in which Keshav Chandra Sen was. He seems, from the very first, to have practiced that very severe kind of asceticism or yoga, which is intended to produce samadhi and ecstatic utterances. His face retains, that is Sri Ramakrishna's face, retains a fullness, a childlike tenderness, a profound visible humbleness, an unspeakable sweetness of expression, and a smile that I have seen on no other face. This is a quote from Pratap Chandra Mazumdar. A Hindu saint is always particular about his externals. He wears the Garua cloth. He eats according to strict forms, refuses to have intercourse with others, and is a rigid observer of caste. He is always proud and professes secret wisdom. He is always a Guruji, a universal counselor and dispenser of charms. But this man, Ramakrishna, is singularly devoid of any such claims. His dress and diet do not differ from those of ordinary men, except in the general negligence he shows toward both. And as to caste, he openly breaks caste every day. He repudiates the title of a teacher or guru. He shows displeasure at any exceptional honor which people try to pay to him, and he emphatically disclaims the knowledge of secrets and mysteries. This shows that he never was an occultist or interested in esoteric things. Mazumdar declares that his religion was Orthodox Hinduism, but, as it would seem, of a very strange type. He worshipped no particular Hindu deity. He was not a worshipper of Shiva or Vishnu or of the Shaktis. He would not even be considered a professed Vedantist, and yet, according to Mazumdar, he accepted all these doctrines, the embodiments, the usages and devotional practices of every religious cult. Each, in turn, was infallible to him. He was a most faithful and devoted in his meditations on the perfection of the one infinite deity whom he terms as the Akhanda Satchidananda, that is, the indivisible, the real, the intelligent, the blissful. His religion, unlike the religion of ordinary Hindu sadhus, did not mean much dogma or controversial proficiency or outward worship with flowers and sandal, incense and offerings. His religion meant ecstasy. His worship was transcendental insight. His whole nature burnt day and night with the permanent fever and fire of a strange faith and feeling. His conversation was a ceaseless breaking forth of his inward fire. He was often merged in rapturous ecstasy and outward unconsciousness, particularly when he spoke of his favorite spiritual experiences or heard any striking response to them. Though he did not worship the Hindu deities in the ordinary fashion, each of them was to him a force, an incarnate principle, tending to reveal the supreme relation of the soul to that eternal and formless being who is unchangeable in his blessedness and light of wisdom. Now, as a quotation from Romain Rolland, who was a very well-known French writer, I think he won some an international award also. Huh? Okay. To my Western readers, I present him, that is Ramakrishna, this is Romain Rolland saying, I present him, Ramakrishna, to you, not as a new book, but as a very old one, which you have all tried to spell out, though many have stopped short at the alphabet. Eventually, it is always the same book, but the writing varies. It is always the same book. It is always the same man, the Son of Man, the Eternal, our Son, our God reborn, with each return, he reveals himself a little more fully and more enriched by the universe. Allowing for differences of country and time, Ramakrishna is the younger brother of our Christ. I am bringing to Europe, as yet unaware of it, the fruit of a new autumn, a new message of the soul, the symphony of India bearing the name of Ramakrishna. It can be shown, and we shall not fail to point out. that this symphony, like those of our classical masters, is built up of 100 different musical elements emanating from the past. But the sovereign personality concentrating in himself the diversity of these elements and fashioning them into a royal harmony is always the one who gives his name to the work, though it contains within itself the labor of generations, and with his victorious sign he marks a new era. The man whose image I here evoke, Ramakrishna, was the consummation of 2,000 years of the spiritual life of 300 million people. Although he has been dead since 1886, although he has passed away, his soul animates modern India. He was no hero of action like Gandhi was, no genius in the art of thought like Goethe or Tagore. He was a little village Brahmin of Bengal whose outer life was set in a limited frame without striking incident, outside the political and social activities of his time. But his inner life embraced the whole multiplicity of men and gods. It was a part of the very source of energy, the divine Shakti, of whom Vidyapati, the old poet of Mithila, and Ram Prasad of Bengal sing. Very few go back to the source. The little peasant of Bengal, by listening to the message of his heart, found his way to the inner sea. And there he was wedded to it, thus bearing out the words of the Upanishad, quote, I am more ancient than the radiant gods. I am the firstborn of the being. I am the artery of immortality. It is my desire to bring the sound of the beating of that artery to the ears of fever-stricken Europe, which has, as it were, murdered sleep. I wish to wet its lips with that refreshing drink. In all parts of the world, this is from a person named Nicholas de Roerich, who was a well-known man in the beginning of the 20th century. In all parts of the world, the name of Ramakrishna is venerated. Also is revered Swami Vivekananda, who symbolized true discipleship. The names of Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and the glorious host of their followers remain on the most remarkable pages of the history of the spiritual culture of India. The astounding depth of thought which is characteristic of India, the beautiful manifestation of the guru and disciple, remind the whole world of basic ideals. Ages pass, whole civilizations change, but the guru and the disciple remain in the same wise relationship which was since antiquity established in India. Many millenniums ago, the words of wisdom were already recorded in India. And how many more millenniums were they preserved even before written transmission? And in this sacred mouth-to-ear transmission, they were kept perhaps even safer than in written words. The ability to keep up the correct meaning depends on a developed, wise consciousness. And this has continued the application of precious wisdom of the past to the radiant future. Not only the everlasting value of the teaching of the good is affirmed by Ramakrishna, but precisely the necessity of these words, especially for our time, is unquestionable. When spirituality as such is being often refuted through wrongly interpreted formulas, then the radiant constructive affirmation of a beacon of light becomes especially precious. One has but to know the colossal number of editions of the Ramakrishna mission. One has but to remember the large number of cities in which this mission has its branches. These figures require no exaggeration. There is no unnatural nervousness, no premeditatedness in these quiet, thought-provoking gatherings. Everything is deeply realized, not in tumult and rush, but it grows in highest commensurement.
I am going to read from the book The Light of the Modern World, the universal significance of Sri Ramakrishna's avatarhood and message. Significance of Sri Ramakrishna's avatarhood. In any discussion on the significance of avatarhood or prophethood of Sri Ramakrishna, 2 points are to be kept in mind. The first point is that the significance of his avatarhood can no longer be confined to Hinduism or India. In the present day world, situation in which a global culture and global spirituality are taking shape, the prophethood of Sri Ramakrishna assumes universal significance. Although this fact may not be known to or be acceptable to many people. The second point is the significance of the avatarhood of Sri Ramakrishna cannot be considered in isolation. It has to be understood in the light of the lives and functions of other avatars, other prophets and world teachers. What are the functions of the avatara or world teacher? What role does he play in the advancement of human culture, in the spiritual elevation of humanity, in the enhancement of human welfare, in the promotion of peace, unity, and love among people? Above all, how does he help people in attaining the ultimate goal of life, in attaining salvation or liberation, which is the goal of Indian philosophy? In this book, there are various facets of Sri Ramakrishna's avatarhood have been delineated, but I shall only read the liberating capacity or the liberating aspect of Sri Ramakrishna. Avatara as a liberator. Swami Vivekananda was once asked in a question-answer session how to recognize God when he has assumed a human form. Swamiji replied himself, one who can alter the doom of people is the Lord. No sadhu, however advanced, can claim this unique position. Avatars are kapala mochana, that is, they can alter the doom of people. What did Swamiji mean by doom of people and kapala mochana? Kapala means forehead. Mochana means what is written in the forehead would be changed. That only avatara can do it. According to the belief held by Indian religions, a person's future is determined by his karma. Every good or bad action produces a part is visible, physical effect in this world, an unseen cosmic effect or karmic residue known as sanchita karma. Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra calls it karmashaya. It is unseen, the Sanskrit meaning of unseen is adrishta, in the sense that nobody knows where sanchita karma or the residual karma is stored. According to popular belief, it is written on the lalata or kapala or forehead. Vyasa in his commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra states that karmashaya is stored in person's buddhi, in intelligence. It is the fructification or activation, in Sanskrit it is called vipaka, of sanchita karma that leads to rebirth. In the next birth, it comes back to the person in a form known as prarabdha karma, which is determined a person's birth. That is what is popularly known as destiny or doom. It is also believed that once the sanchita karma is stored, no human being can change it or prevent from the fruitioning. It will fruition and will cause rebirth. According to the Hindu belief, only God or divine incarnation, avatara, can destroy a person's sanchita karma. In that case, he will not be born again and will be freed from the bondage to the wheel of samsara. Not only that, even during a person's lifetime, God or avatara can prevent or alter the course of his prarabdha. This means if a person is destined to suffer, the avatar can mitigate or prevent it. This is the reason why Swamiji described avatara as kapala mochana, one who can alter another person's doom. This is somewhat similar to the Christian concept of salvation, which means redeeming or saving a person from original sin. Freedom from bondage to the wheel of samsara is known as mukti or final liberation. All theistic schools hold that only Ishvara or avatara can give this final liberation. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna declares, it is in the chapter 12, verse number 6 and 7, Teshamaham samudharta mrityu sangsaro sagarat, etc. Those who surrender all their karmas to me and meditate on me with unswerving devotion, I lift them up out of the ocean of transmigratory existence. I lift them up out of the ocean of transmigratory existence. Krishna gives this assurance to Arjuna: give up all your obligations and take refuge in me alone. I will liberate you from all your sins. Grieve not. Christ gave a similar assurance. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Only an avatara can give this kind of divine assurance. According to Swami Vivekananda, it is this power to give ultimate liberation that is the chief characteristics of the avatara. And it was the faith that Sri Ramakrishna was endowed with this power and made Swamiji accept and declare Sri Ramakrishna as the avatara of the present age. In fact, Swamiji begins his magnificent Vesper hymn, this Khandana Bhava just we heard, words, O breaker of bonds, we adore thee. Khandana Bhava Bandhana. How does the avatara break the bonds of jivas? Swamiji has indicated this in 2 lines which form the climax of the Vesper hymn. Just we heard. Bonds of samsara are not like ropes. They are nothing but different from ignorance. The avatara removes the darkness of ignorance from the core of the heart by illuminating it with the light of knowledge. At the end we heard, Jyotiro Jyoti Ujalo Hridikandare. Tumi tavo bandhanahar. In the Gita, Sri Krishna also states, I bless them by dispelling the darkness of ignorance from their hearts with the brilliant light of the lamp of knowledge. Teshanuhamonukar partha Jnanam tamaha, etc. It is verse number 11, chapter 10. And that Sri Ramakrishna did. Thank you.
Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampadhita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. Om. Salutations to Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, the perfect embodiment of the eternal truth, which manifests itself in various forms to help mankind, and the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, who is worshipped by all. I shall read out from the same book Swamiji read. It is The Light of the Modern World by Swami Bhajanananda. I shall read out the prologue, which actually was published in Prabuddha Bharata as an editorial many years ago. Sri Ramakrishna, the known and the unknown. The timeless adoration. When the sun sinks behind the western skyline, when shadows thicken and merge in the enveloping gloom, when from the horizon the carpet of stillness spreads across twilit world, a simple ritual is performed in scores of ashramas and in thousands of homes in adoration of a being known to the world as Sri Ramakrishna. In a special room or corner of a room set apart for his unseen presence, incense is burned and lights are waved, and often there is group singing of songs and hymns of praise and supplication. A religious ritual is a sacrament. Behind it, there is a sacralizing agent whose power sustains it for centuries. Through the ritual, past events are recreated in the minds of devotees, and they encounter divine phenomena afresh. When the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna do puja or arati in their dwelling places, each place of worship becomes, in a mystic sense, his room at Dakshineshwar temple garden. Time, as it were, stands still, and history is transcended when Sri Ramakrishna accepts, as his devotees believe, their worship day after day. For the time being, there then exists only an eternal now. Such is the miracle that faith works through religious rituals. Kasmai devaya havisa vidhema. Who is that deity to whom we offer oblations? Who is this Sri Ramakrishna to whom thousands of people now accord adoration? Who is Sri Ramakrishna, whose deathless reality is now intimately connected with the lives and destinies of countless people all over the world? If this question is put to his devotees and followers, it is likely to embarrass a good number of them, while those who attempt to answer it soon find that they are failing to give clear expression to their deepest convictions about him. It is said that when Girish Chandra Ghosh once requested Swami Vivekananda to write a life of Sri Ramakrishna, the great Swami hastily shrank back and told him, "Ask me to dry up the ocean, I shall do that. Ask me to pulverize the mountains, I shall do that. But please do not ask me to write the life of Sri Ramakrishna." If even a person of Swami Vivekananda's eminence felt so diffident about his understanding of his master, one may not find it surprising that the ordinary devotees of Sri Ramakrishna fail to comprehend his real nature. But the truth is, more often than not, the acceptance of Sri Ramakrishna by his devotees is not the result of elaborate reasoning or deep cogitation. With many, it is largely a case of divine innovation of the devotees' hearts. Though they may attribute it to the reading of a book, or a chance hearing of a talk, or a casual visit to an ashrama. And when this happens, they feel a compelling urge to accept and worship a phenomenon which they do not fully understand. However, an unconscious acceptance of a spiritual ideal is often not strong enough to take the spiritual aspirant far on the spiritual path. Faith in God is too precious a thing to be allowed to remain in the dark subterranean chambers of the mind. Faith must be illumined by experience, and devotion must become a fully conscious self-directed approach. The early Vedic Aryans worshipped several deities. Soon, some inquiring minds among them began to ask themselves, who is that deity to whom we offer oblations? Questions of this kind urged them to undertake an investigation into the nature of the reality behind this phenomenal world. And in the Upanishads, we find how this search culminated in the discovery of Brahman as the ultimate truth. Devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, or for that matter, devotees of any personal god or avatara, are sure to find the bounds of their understanding of their object of adoration expanding when they too undertake a similar inquiry. What do you think of me? Sri Ramakrishna himself, during his lifetime, seemed to have encouraged such a spirit of inquiry among his intimate disciples. He used to ask them now and then what they thought about him. For instance, we find in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, the master asking M, the author of the book, on the latter's third visit to him, "Let me ask you something. What do you think of me? How many annas of knowledge of God have I?" There was a twofold purpose in asking this question. In the first place, the answer he got gave him an insight into the working of the disciple's mind and an understanding of the latter's belief pattern. Secondly, the question was calculated to stimulate the disciple's mind to make an effort to understand the person whom he adored, and keep his relation with him an ever fresh and conscious experience. Devotees often run the risk of taking their relationship with their chosen ideals for granted. They often remain satisfied with the thought that they already possess enough love for their chosen ideals. Similarly, meditation is often attempted with the assumption that the object of their meditation is known to them. If they know all about their objects of meditation, why should they meditate on them at all? This kind of presumption, which is born of ignorance, destroys the initiative for seeking the truth and blocks the path of progress. That is why the Upanishad teaches, truth is known to the person to whom it is unknown. He does not know to whom it is known. It is unknown to those who know well and known to those who do not know. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that devotees who come here may be divided into two groups. One group says, "Oh God, give me liberation." Another group, belonging to the inner circle, does not talk that way. They are satisfied if they can know two things: who I am, second, who they are, and what their relationship to me is. This is an important statement which comes to Swami Vivekananda's definition of true religion as the eternal relationship between the eternal soul and the eternal God. The relationship between the devotee and his chosen ideal becomes eternal only when it is based on a true knowledge of the real nature of the worshipper and the object of worship. Temporal and eternal aspects. Sri Ramakrishna is now being accepted as an incarnation of God, not only by thousands of his followers. but also by a large number of other people in different parts of the world, among whom may be counted several eminent thinkers and famous people. A modern biographer of Sri Ramakrishna can now feel less hesitant and apologetic in discussing this aspect of Sri Ramakrishna's life than his early predecessors. That Sri Ramakrishna's life and experiences are extraordinary and extend beyond the bounds of ordinary sainthood is clear to all who care to study them. The main difficulty lies not in calling him an incarnation of God, but in what that term really means. And it is here that we meet Sri Ramakrishna, the unknown. For the mystery of incarnation has not so far lent itself to easy solution. A right understanding and evaluation of the life and message of Sri Ramakrishna should be based on the acceptance of the mystery of the incarnation. The mystery that surrounds the real nature of Sri Ramakrishna is ultimately bound up with the mystery of the incarnation. The main function of the incarnation is the redemption of humanity. The word redemption is, however, used here not in the narrow sense of saving a person from original sin. It is used here only to indicate the superhuman capacity of a divine person to cut the bonds and destroy the ignorance of millions of souls by infusing the spiritual power and knowledge into them and lift them to higher planes of existence where they enjoy supreme peace and bliss. The vast majority of ordinary mortals are unable to achieve all these by their own individual efforts. And incarnation is a reservoir of great spiritual power, and he creates, with himself as the center, a field of spiritual forces. Whoever is drawn into this field by the irresistible will of the incarnation spontaneously gets illumination and freedom. This is essentially how Swami Vivekananda explains the doctrines of incarnation and grace. It takes centuries for humankind to comprehend an incarnation. For centuries, millions of people have been inspired by the lives and teachings of Buddha and Christ, and hundreds of books have been written on them. Yet, they still continue to stimulate fresh studies, and new books are still being brought out, throwing new lights on the contemporary relevance and significance of these old masters. When a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna one day complained to Swami Vivekananda that his methods of preaching and social service were Western in type and incompatible with Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, Swamiji delivered himself with great fervor. The thing is this: Sri Ramakrishna is far greater than his disciples understand him to be. He is the embodiment of infinite spiritual ideas, capable of development in infinite ways. Even if one can find a limit to the knowledge of Brahman, one cannot measure the unfathomable depth of our Master's mind. The Incarnation, who is the embodiment of infinite spiritual ideas, takes centuries to work himself out. Through innumerable institutions and religious traditions, through the creative minds of saints and sages, artists, thinkers, philosophers, and leaders of the society, his ideas find expression for a very long period of time, inspiring, comforting, and guiding suffering human beings until they all find themselves safe through the portals of immortality. In this sense, the life and mission of Sri Ramakrishna may be said to have only just begun. For a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, the most important problem of life is the quest for the real Sri Ramakrishna. A true devotee of Sri Ramakrishna does not remain satisfied with reading or hearing about his life and teachings. Making use of the knowledge thus gained, the devotee tries to seek the reality of which this knowledge is only a shadow. The devotee soon finds that this mystic quest is leading him or her onto the depth of their soul, which is the gateway to the world of the spirit. It is there that the real Ramakrishna is to be sought. The real Sri Ramakrishna is unknown but not unknowable. He can be known only if he reveals himself. And he reveals himself to sincere aspirants in the secret depths of their hearts and fulfills the beginningless yearnings of their souls. Diverse and mysterious are the ways by which the Incarnation reveals himself to the blessed and leads them from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, and from death to immortality. What even these blessed souls feel about him has been expressed by Swami Abhedananda, who was certainly one among them, in the following verse: O Lord, I do not know your real nature. Whatever be the truth you reveal yourself in, to that I offer my salutations again and again. Tattam deva na janami Ramakrishna tava prabho yadrosho si kripa sindhu tadrishayo namo namaha.
I am reading from a small book. The title of the book is The Visions of Sri Ramakrishna, written by Swami Yogeshananda. Swami Yogeshananda is a 94-year-old Swami living in the Tibuku monastery. So he wrote a very remarkable book long back. The title of the book is The Visions of Sri Ramakrishna, mostly taken from the Great Master and other lives of Sri Ramakrishna. The coming of disciples in vision and in the flesh. Now, there are a few things to be said about the vision. It is a kind of mystical experience, and there are long descriptions of visions in the Bhagavata Purana, which is full of devotees getting visions of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. The text talks about a particular state of human consciousness in which a mystic, a highly evolved spiritual person can transcend time and causation. So, when you reach a particular, a highly evolved level of perception, that goes beyond what we normally understand perception at the sensory level. By meditating on dharana, dhyana and samadhi, it's called samyama. The Yoga Sutras also talk about this vision. A kind of intuition is born in our system by which we can directly communicate with the truth. It may be about certain things that happened in the past that we have not experienced, or maybe something that is going to happen in the future, or perhaps certain realities of events that we have not witnessed but which nobody knows much about. So these are called visions. What I am going to read is about Sri Ramakrishna's vision in relation to Keshav Chandra Sen. Swami Vedanandaji already mentioned about this Keshav Chandra Sen, so you can get a picture of the gentleman in these words. I had seen Keshav before I actually met him. Sri Ramakrishna says, I had seen him and his party in my samadhi. He could see the Keshav Chandra Sen as he was, which perhaps his own followers did not understand, though they were moving along with him, but they did not know the reality behind this personality. Keshav looked like a peacock sitting with its tail spread out. The tail meant his followers. I saw a red gem on Keshav's head that indicated his tejas. Tejas means activism, exuberance, flamboyance, maybe in some cases. Tendency to act and make a big deal of oneself, that also can be. And that's exactly what he was doing, you'll find out very soon. He said to his disciples, Sri Ramakrishna said to his disciples, please listen to what he is saying. Of course, here this quotation is from Sri Ramakrishna, referring to what Keshav was telling. So Keshav was telling his own followers, listen to what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So that's the context. So Sri Ramakrishna saw this vision. Here's some kind of an intuitive vision in which he found Keshav as a huge peacock with his tail spread out with a red gem on his head. Not a very pleasant description of. And his own followers did not like when Keshav, Sri Ramakrishna mentioned about Keshav. He's like a fish, small little taut fish, his tail broken off. So Keshav's own followers, who wrote some books on the history of Brahma Samaj, which was published in 1930, has criticized Sri Ramakrishna's estimate of Keshav as a fish taut with tail cut off. So that is not a very commendable estimate. But what Sri Ramakrishna meant was totally lost with them. They didn't understand. What Sri Ramakrishna said was, he had already reached a very high level of meditation. So it is a great comment, it is a great, Sri Ramakrishna was actually complimenting Keshav for his high attainment in meditation, which Keshav's followers did not understand. So a lot of controversy later started with this. I said to the Divine Mother, Mother, these people hold the views of Englishmen. Why should I talk to them? Now Keshav, Vedananda mentioned, Keshav had seen Queen Victoria, which is certainly not a very big deal from an American perspective, Seeing Queen Victoria won't be considered to be something much of a very impressive accomplishment from an American point of view, nor Indian point of view. But Keshav was very proud of it. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says, it's a peacock with a red gem, Rajoguna, so proud of having a vision of Queen Victoria. He went to England and Queen Victoria gracefully gave him her vision. And Keshav had a huge picture of Queen Victoria decorating his room, which is certainly was not something very impressive about it. But India in those days, at least for an Englishman living in Calcutta and many Indians who lived like Englishmen, to pretend to be Englishmen, they were very proud of seeing Keshav in their midst. A man who had seen Queen Victoria, something very wonderful. So that's the picture. So the red gem spoke of Keshav's Rajoguna, the man who traveled to England and proudly In a way, according to historical records, Keshav requested Queen Victoria to help him to convert Indians to Christianity. That's what the historians of Keshav Sen had to say. Keshav went to England, met Queen Victoria, and asked her help to help him to convert Indians to Christianity. So, that's why Guru Maharaj Sri Ramakrishna found a red gem which is full of enthusiasm, activism, pride and all that. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna considers Vivekananda, who at least several times as more advanced as Keshav himself. Sri Ramakrishna looked upon Swami Vivekananda as a much more highly evolved, much more enlightened person compared to Keshav. So Vivekananda was a 19-year-old college student at that time, and Keshav was such a big celebrity in the city. So that's how Sri Ramakrishna's vision came, with the peacock spread out. That vast spread out wings indicated Keshav's followers, his popularity. He was a big celebrity in the city. And a red gem spoke about what a small man he was, fully proud of having a vision of Queen Victoria. That's the contrasting pictures you can find. Mother, these people hold the views of Englishmen. Why should I talk to them? Why should I talk to a man like Keshav, who is so proud of having had a vision of Queen Victoria of all people? Why should I talk to them? Then the mother explained to me that it would be like this in this Kali Yuga. That's not a big compliment. In Kali Yuga, you have to put up with all this. You have to talk to people like Keshav Chandra Sen. You have to talk to people like Englishmen. Talk to them about spirituality. So mother means divine mother. Mother Kali. Console Sri Ramakrishna. All these happen in a vision. So the whole vision actually spoke volumes to Sri Ramakrishna. That no one could have understood by looking at Keshav or looking at anything. You find such visions mentioned in the Bhagavata Purana. Kunti, Uddhava, Vidura, Bhishma, many great devotees had visions of Vishnu in that superconscious state where they transcended time, and what we call reason, they could connect directly with certain realities. That state of intuitive wisdom, intuitive connection is called vision. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is talking about. Then mother here means Kali, the mother, consoled him that it will be like in this Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga indicates a particular era in the cyclic evolution which is characterized by a degradation of values. So that's what Kali Yuga stands for. I just want to make it clear. Kali Yuga stands for a particular era in the cyclic rotation of universe where higher values will be lost. Higher values of satya, dharma, truth, ethical, spiritual values will be degraded and lower values will become predominant. So these are the characteristics of Kali Yuga. And mother consoled Sri Ramakrishna, don't worry, in Kali Yuga this is what you have to put up with. It certainly was to be like that, as the last 11 years of Sri Ramakrishna's life demonstrate. No longer was the spiritual light of Dakshineshwar to be shaded by the provincial proprieties of language, caste, culture, or personal convenience. The meeting of the master with Keshav Chandra Sen, who had recently succeeded Devendranath Tagore as the de facto leader of the Brahmo Samaj, introduces the open door phase of Ramakrishna's life, wherein teaching, visiting, and the attentions of the public became daily affairs. Keshav represented the elite of the city and the best educated, the so-called the most cultured, upward mobile people of the city, the professors, the academics, and also other Indians who have traveled to England and maybe met Queen Victoria. So all these people represented the elite of Calcutta at that time. And this Keshav was the leader of them. So if that Keshav tells his followers, see, you talk to this Brahmin priest, Sri Ramakrishna. So that in a way had a great impact on the public, the city. So many educated people, highly evolved people started visiting the Dakshineshwar temple, started visiting Sri Ramakrishna and started talking to him, listening to his instructions. That was an important turning point in the history, in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Before that, he used to worry about nobody's coming, nobody's listening. Only a few people in the city were coming. So where are they? And finally they began coming, and all because Keshav, in spite of his very proud accomplishments, including getting a vision of Queen Victoria, was actually a very humble person. Not a very proud person, really. Because he had the humility and the self-deprecating characteristic, personality, to tell his own followers, you go to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, you go to Ramakrishna, you listen to what he says. So that was a turning point in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. So that's why the Swami writes here, introduces the open door phase of Ramakrishna's life, meeting Keshav. One account says that the master had seen Keshav long before, not in a vision but in real life, from a distance, at a religious meeting where the latter was meditating, and he had remarked that he was the only boy whose meditation was successful. So he had compared Keshav to tiny fish which had lost its tail. That means it has become free. It is quite advanced in meditation in that respect. The statement was openly made by Sri Ramakrishna, which Keshav's own followers did not really understand. Keshav did not, however, become a disciple in the technical sense of the word. The relationship between him and Sri Ramakrishna is difficult to define and makes an interesting study. We may remark only that much has been written about Sri Ramakrishna's influence on Brahma Samaj and its leaders. But the contact also had its effect in another direction. These modern Brahmajnanis, as the master called them, would come to him with their questions about knowledge of Brahman and their predilection for the formless aspect of God, and in a way it affected him. So you have to remember, great monastic disciples like Vivekananda, great household disciples like Yam, who wrote the Gospel, they were all one way or other associated with Brahma Samaj, which of course had his leader in Keshav. Keshav was the dominating figure of the city, was the greatest leader of Brahma Samaj after the passing away of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, its founder, who founded this reform movement in the year 1828. I used to remain unconscious during the Samadhi most of the time. Whenever I regained consciousness, I would say to the Divine Mother, "Oh Mother, please don't give me Brahmajnana." So there are many such visions mentioned in this book. Those of you who are interested can get this book from our bookstore. And you find in Sri Ramakrishna's life many descriptions of similar visions. And you find such visions mentioned in the lives of mystics of different traditions, where where our intuition, which is a faculty which then the result of one-pointed meditation and its highest level, when you reach a different level of consciousness, but you don't make an error, it is not supported by reason, but it transcends reason. So intuition transcends reason. What a great spiritual teacher understands at the level of intuition, which is called a vision, may not be perceptible or comprehensible at the level of reason, but it transcends and goes beyond reason, but does not contradict reason. So this is a very interesting book which I wanted to introduce before you. Thank you. Now we will have a few announcements now. After this, we will have flower offerings by devotees. So when it is ready, you can come forward and do flower offering. And after flower offering, please proceed to Vivekananda Hall for lunch prasad. Thank you. Namaskar. Oh, yeah.